Hello again, whiskey friends. Thanks for joining everybody for another Whiskey Wednesday, special edition of Whiskey Wednesday. Yet again, we do have Mia backstage from JT Meleck to talk all about their wonderful rice whiskey. Now, it will be a first for the channel here. We are going to do an interview in the midst of a hurricane. So we will see how this all plays out. So thank you for joining today, whiskey friends. Let's kick off the show. Forgot to mark all my glasses here. Kelsey has set up a flight for us tonight, given that he is the resident expert in all things JT Meleck, since he's been tricking us with these single barrels for over a year now. Now, as we go into this live, I do want to thank everybody for the support over the last week. The last weekend here was pretty crazy, launching all of those barrel picks. Cannot wait for those backbones and for the Blue Note to be in everybody's hands. We are starting to hear that some of the deliveries are landing. So really excited to hear feedback and spread the word for us. There is a bit more of the rye, the Sticky Icky, which is frankly, the best $49 bottle I've had all year, and the Blue Note as well. Still available. So spread the word here. And once you taste them too, especially, let us know what you think. So let's bring on Kelsey first. Kelsey, what is this flight that you have for us tonight? Why don't you give everybody a little bit of a preview?
Oh, hello again, whiskey friends. Good to be here. I'm so excited. I've been a huge fan of this brand for a long time. So we're going to have a little smattering, a potpourri, if you will, of JT Meleck products tonight. We've got the small batch, it looks like this. It is 96 proof. I'm going to get that right. Woo, there we go. Then we have not the full proof, no full proof here. 118 proof, which is their batched barrel proof version of that. And then we're going to go to a single barrel, Mike's Pick, which was from Bourbon Outfitters, from Justin's House of Bourbon. And then also go into my favorite so far is the Legacy Edition. Thanks to Copper Wolf for grabbing this for me. And that will be all of those that we have tonight to go through. So everybody has the same. We'll talk through those and talk to Mia. She's such a great person, has a bubbly personality and fun to be around. So you guys are going to really enjoy talking to her. And if you guys don't know what JT Meleck is, after tonight, you better go talk to your liquor stores about getting it in there, because you're missing out on some really great whiskey if you're not. So,
that's a perfect note to bring Darrell on. So, Darrell, what do you like most about JT Meleck whiskey?
It's tough to really say bad things in all honesty. Not that me as backstage, we've loved this before we even knew who you were. And it's funny because it's ever changing. The first time that I've had this, I don't think I've ever called this anything other than a bourbon. When we do blinds, we do a lot of blinds, and this thing's tricked me every single time. And I don't think I'll ever say that it's a rice whiskey. It just has so many characteristics of conventional things that I've drank. So it confuses me. So those who want to give me blinds, if you ever want to confuse me, man, take note. This stuff is good stuff, but it's tough to pinpoint. But I do like everything that I've had so far, and I'm really anxious to dive into these because I haven't had any of the ones that Kelsey sent today. So this should be fun.
All right. Well, let's bring on our special guest, Mia Albaugh, who is joining us from JT in the eye of a hurricane. Everyone say hi to Mia.
Hello.
What's going
Thanks for
on?
having me. But we are definitely not in the eye. Otherwise, we would not be on this call. I would be like strapping everything down. It would not be good. It thankfully moved more east. Unthankfully, and I don't mean thankfully, I don't want a hurricane at all, but we're on the west side, which is the best side. So we're doing it. But if I lose power, like I said, we're just doing it in the dark. You can still hear me.
Nice. We'll make it work.
Well, Mia, we got people joining the chat. Joining in chat. We got 49 people watching so far. Why don't you give an introduction about yourself? You know, what is your role at JT Meleck? What brought you there? And what do you like about getting into this whiskey in general? Love to hear about your background.
I'll start off this by saying I do not know how to make a long story short. So in pressure situations, I have an elevator, but most of the time I have very long answers. So where to start with that? So I am 5th generation on our rice and crawfish farm. So that's where I guess the historical of that. My name was actually supposed to be Meleck. Sounds way better on a brand, like way, way better. So John Meleck is our great uncle John, who planted our first rice crop in relatively 1896, which is why we have it on the bottle. But I actually we're finding data to show that we think it was earlier than that, which is really cool. Which was really cool. So what we do is we had rice. He planted rice. My great grandfather did rice. My grandfather did rice. And when my father and uncle took over the farm, the value of rice plummeted. And so it did it again. And that's kind of how JT Meleck came about. But at the time, LSU Ag and a bunch of other places were doing kind of a research on crawfish and how they are inverted seasons and they complement each other. So aquaculture was brought into these farms and it complements and added value to the rice crop. And now you fast forward, that was in the early 80s. And now everybody and their uncle has crawfish. Everybody's got crawfish around. You can find crawfish anywhere. And so there's nothing, the same thing happened to rice. People used to just be able to farm rice. Now they can't. The value plummeted again in the early 2000s. Crawfish was already max value. You have other countries complementing. You have all these different things. It's where we were sitting around wondering if we could bring our farm into the next generation. At this point, I guess you could say I didn't really have a role. Not to say that there wasn't one, but I just didn't see myself on the farm. I just don't yearn to be a farmer. I was actually in college athletics. So I already had plans, goals, everything, helping here. But in terms of, being on the tractor, that just wasn't for me. My cousin's absolutely ready to go. But we started this conversation of like what to do. And so we're in these family meetings going back and forth of like, do we close down this farm? Do we stop doing it? Do we do the basic necessities? And it was kind of like a ping pong match, between everybody of like, we're getting to the point. My father's like, we're not planting. My uncle's like, yes, we are. And I'm like, what's going to happen next? And like, we're just going back and forth. And somebody made a joke. I basically told us all that we needed to relax. Like, everyone take a deep breath. Let's go get a cocktail. Relax. Hell, you can take your rice and make vodka from it or something. We can make our own cocktails. And we stopped the conversation and we were like, what? What did you say? He was like, I'm kidding. I just mean like, let's reset. Like, emotions are high. And he's like, no, what did you say? And so that's where it started. Like, quick Google search. Can you do that? Oh my gosh. So cute.
He's not going to want to leave me.
Hi.
You want to say hi? Then you can run
Hey, buddy.
downstairs.
My daughter pops into these things all the time. Like, gives me a certain window of time, and then she does.
Hi.
Hopefully you can see me. Some of our generator just popped on, so I lost power. I'm babbling too much, but basically the concept was to add value to the rice. Somebody made a joke, and then we realized all you needed a grain. And we did vodka on purpose. So my father's a martini guy, very particular about his martinis. We'll literally go in the back and watch them make a cocktail. And so we made our vodka on purpose. But we always joke that we're very stubborn and more like a bet family. Like, oh, you tell us we can't do something? I had no plans to do that, but now I do because I want to show you that I can do it. And somebody came to me and my father and told us that it's impossible. There's no way that you could make a whiskey, a good quality whiskey 100% from rice in Louisiana. It was impossible. And I could feel it. I was like, oh man, you messed up because now we're about to do it. I'm like cracking our knuckles, like, ready, let's do this, And I make it sound so simple. Such an emotional roller coaster. And you see a lot of things like when they release things, I've seen a lot, at least in the information that we get, is a 2-year mark. you can taste whiskeys. They release some bourbons at 2 years because that's when it really comes out and starts to show a profile, and then their aging starts from that. And when we tasted our whiskey at 2 years, we literally thought we made the worst mistake. Because if you think about it, how do you add value to your rice crop? Make whiskey and put it away. Like, that doesn't add value to it. You're waiting 5+ years. Yeah. And thankfully, with impatient, we had somebody convince us to wait till 3 years. And he was basically like, if it doesn't work at 3, you need to cut it. It actually cannot work. And 3 years, 3 months, and 18 days, it presented itself. And we were like, oh my God, now what do we do? What do we do now? Oh God, I didn't prepare for this part. And so when it came to it, when we tried at that 3-year mark, really, I had gotten I was in it from the beginning, but not when we were just vodka only. I more did it from like a negotiation tactic. I was on the back. I would maneuver things, more production, more from a back, making sure that the managerial things were good, because we didn't really have a face or anything. It was the minute that we tasted and we had to make the decision, like, we are going to make whiskey, and we're going to have a brand, and we're going to shift to a large national scope of what that future would be. Because for me, I was changing my entire course of being on track of a college coach. Coming in, for me, I was like, I will only do it if we do the whiskey. We have to have both an entire profile. Otherwise, it can kind of be like a part-time thing. And so we met again. And so we decided. So JT Meleck became, I like to say that it became, my father is addicted. He's got an addicted personality to entrepreneurship. If he's ever too quiet, he's creating a freaking company. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? We are all the kids, all of us are in charge of something. And I'm like, no. Like, my mom's got Cajun crawfish. We ship crawfish to 41 states. So he takes our skill sets, the resources that we have, and he develops something that enhances our farm for one of us to maintain and take over. So JT Meleck became mine. And so from then, when we tasted it, you could say the rest is history. And we're building every day. We're very much still in the beginning stages of getting to full production, figuring out what we're doing. We have no idea what we're doing. We figure it out every day. But that was not a short version, and I apologize. I always feel like people have to understand where we came from to get here. And it was a lot of luck and just happenstance. And here we are.
Well, you headed off one of my first questions, which was, why rice? So I think you gave us that answer. And wow, just the fact that the farm and the exploration into distilling in general, because of the crop and everything, is like, now I'm even more fascinated by this origin story than I was before.
I love that, because I realize that not many people realize that we actually are a farm first. And I think it's important to the story.
It's important to the story. And then, like, in general, when the way that Kelsey introduced us to this, we didn't know it was rice whiskey. I think we thought it was Buffalo Trace when he gave it to us in a blind. Like, we were insistent. Like, there was a cherry note. We're like, this is Buffalo Trace. And we just kind of we're really, really confident. And then at some point, Kelsey was like, so what's the secondary grain? And we're like, oh, it's rye. And we moved on. And then lo and behold, it was JT Meleck, 100% rice whiskey. Yeah. Kelsey being a little bit of a jerk there. Love you, Matt, wherever you are. But that was our introduction. And then ever since, we've been just totally fascinated by all the single barrels, the ever-changing profiles, what it does in the wood, all the different flavors. I mean, this is a chameleon, and it's still, I don't have any other reference point, at least within the US, of what rice whiskey could be. Maybe if you go over to Japan, I've had some Japanese rice whiskeys, but this is my only domestic rice whiskey ever in my life. Yeah, completely different. And you can even, even the concept of a crop itself, there's now professional or really understand all of the corn, but there's a reason that they'll say like golden corn or this corn or Iowa corn or this, they'll be very specific because it's a specific type of corn done a certain way in a certain environment. So those type of Japanese style, it's not the same. We're doing American style. So that's why it's so close to the bourbon kind of feel and textures, because we do everything the same, because that was the pinpoint. It's the most popular item.
We were trying to repeat something that's already got a base and a foundation. Rice whiskey doesn't. There's no American style rice whiskey, and there's definitely not. That's 100% grain to bottle in that form. That's a Scottish. They can't say they're using Scottish techniques, but then you've got a single malt. We're not a single malt. And it blows people's minds because I get people all the time, especially in the beginning, they could not figure out where to put this on the shelf. They would like call me and they're like, is this in a single malt? And I'm like, it's not a single malt. It's just a whiskey. It's American whiskey. They're like, so, but it's rice. And I'm like, yeah, it's rice. You just did great. It's a whiskey. So it's not a bourbon. And I'm like, no, it doesn't have corn. It's just rice. And it's crazy because everyone always says, okay, that's great. Like you've got the rice. I really like your whiskey, but when are you going to start doing corn? And I'm like, we're not corn farmers. That's the short answer. Yeah. We're rice farmers. We're so different in this industry. It's both a positive and a negative because it gets people like more like, what? You know, when we're like the finishes of the corns or the rye or the single malt or all these different styles, they're like, when are you going to adapt your profile? I'm like, we're doing something that nobody else has done. And we have multiple SKU lines across that to adapt to palates. And then you see our barrel program. And I mean, they adapt to everything. It's not one singular. They blend in with everything. And so I don't even think we've really hit what rice can do. We just talk corn so much that I just don't think I see the future. I'm not saying JT Meleck has led it. I definitely would say that other people have had conversations, but I don't know many like generational farmers that make rice a certain way and have done it a certain way. I'll tell you, for example, I think a big reason why our stuff tastes the way is how we farm stuff. We do things like the hard way, I guess you could say. We definitely don't cut corners on anything we do. Most of the time, the process that we do will take 4 times longer, but it values way later. So crawfish, we do about 3.1 million pounds of crawfish a year, and we push our boats. So I don't know if you've ever seen a crawfish boat. It has a huge motor at the end, and it comes in and they're in it. It's motorized. They can just go, they dump it, and they're moving along. They can have plots. I mean, within minutes, they can finish an entire plot and move to the next one. We manually push our entire plot. It takes 5 times longer. We have to start like at 3 a.m. and still be going in the afternoon. Whereas you take a boat, you can have half the labor, 1/3 of the time, and get it done. But what it does is it ruins your land. It's every time it's taking it, it's just going into the dirt. It's ruining the ecosystem for the crawfish. It's ruining the rice under. We don't strip our grain out of the plot. So whenever you see our crawfish ponds, you'll see pieces of rice coming out. We do not just like basically flip over. We allow the natural progression of the land. We relay the dirt, we supply it, we let it sit for longer, and then we manually fill those ponds up. And I think that has a lot to do with the quality of the rice. And so when you come back, it's like the chameleon is a perfect example of what we call the rice and gravy theory. I honestly think that I don't think any of us knows really what our whiskey tastes like because I think it adapts to the person. And I think that's why people get so like, it blows their mind because when it's in a blind, it adapts to that blind. So if you've got a bourbon line or a rye line or anything, all of a sudden people think it blends in. I swear
it's a chameleon.
Rice. So rice in our culture, when you make a gumbo, the rice complements your gumbo. So it's not going to make a bad gumbo better. It's going to enhance a bad gumbo. And so it complements, if you put water on rice and you put water on corn, you can shake the kernel of corn off and it'll still be hard and it's there. The rice will be mushy and you cannot get the flavor components out. It adapts to the flavor. So I truly think there's no data to show it, but I truly think that our rice, it goes into your mouth and it adapts to your profile and it gives you what you want to taste back. And it expands into stuff that you like and it adapts to whether it's what you drink before, what you're thinking about. And it complements exactly what you want to taste. And so it's a chameleon. It just lingers in there. And then people are like, what is rice? What the heck? How did this get in here? And then it just has its own like, oh, you want this? I got you. Don't you worry. You just sit back and enjoy it. And it's quite wild to see where it came from and where it started. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, we've been calling it a chameleon for a year, and now you just gave like a semi-scientific explanation, or at least a culinary explanation behind it. And my mind is blown.
Mia math.
Well, Kelsey,
let's drink
I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, let's drink some of the 96 proof.
Yes.
Small bag.
96 -2.
Yeah, right. So if you guys, I know you've seen it on my videos, but this is what we're drinking. This is their small batch product that is on the shelf. So
You can't have this, buddy.
now, when I first tasted some of these whiskeys, I kept getting this candy note of Smarties, and so
I've had that before.
yeah, and it's in the backbone to me, like of the distillate, like in the small batch and the barrel proof. To me, it gets that confectionery, sweet, like fruity, Smartie vibe.
Yep.
Which is really interesting. Number one on any whiskey, but especially a whiskey that's coming off of rice. Like I would have never, thought living there, eating all kinds of Cajun food and having rice at all kind of different meals. But I never would have guessed this type of a profile on rice whiskey. So.
And for anybody that's listening that's ever curious, especially with how the range of our barrels and all of our profiles, we do not add anything. There's nothing added. There's nothing manipulated. We literally dump and bottle straight up on a manual bottling line. And so I did a video a couple weeks ago, or maybe last week. I don't know. Time is relative, I guess. And I was talking about the concept of our product being glutenless. And so it's kind of like a myth and a misunderstanding on both components. Like whenever you see something like a vodka on the line, it's like 10 times distilled, gluten-free. It's impossible that it's 10 times distilled. And if it really is, you should probably run. Don't consume that. That is rubbing alcohol. Don't drink it. But we got into this marketing thing like, yeah, more times it's distilled, the better, when it should only be distilled one time. And most of the time they're talking about the columns that it's going through because it became this marketing term. It'll say gluten-free on it, which is unfortunately an uncontrolled term that's inaccurate. While distillation process does remove gluten, if it has to be distilled 10 times, it means the distillation process was done wrong and there is gluten still in there. Not only that, but you have cross-contamination. The minute that is in an open environment with other corns and other mashes, and when your mash and ferment intakes are in the same area, that's cross-contamination and your stuff is now not gluten-free. And so what I explain to people is rice is a glutenless. So it doesn't contain gluten to begin with. So it's a free zone. We don't have gluten on our farm in any capacity whatsoever. And we don't add anything. So there's no added, there's no enhancers. There's nothing to make it taste, like how it tastes. And so it truly is. We have people that have celiac. My mom's one of them. She, for years, she couldn't drink, and she can finally drink the products. So that was a major thing. She was so excited that she could have a cocktail again, because it truly is. And we'll have people that'll come to me. They're like, so you promise, it's not advertising. It's not some marketing thing. Like it truly is 100% rice. And I'm like, yes, nothing else is in it. It's rice. Like you can drink it, which makes it even crazier that I've had people that are like, what do you put in it after? Absolutely nothing. It's the rice in the barrel.
All right.
But what do you guys think, Jeff and Darrell, about this small batch 96 proof?
I mean, it's wonderful. So this is, just for context, Darrell and I have never had any of these 4 samples before. I don't know if I said that off the top. So I've never had the 94 proof one before, but 96 proof one. Oh, man. Someone's going to clip that and start getting emails. But no, if you can see how oily that is right there, that's actually a very surprising element of it there for being the lower proof one. And you can feel it on the mouthfeel. I mean, that's always the thing that sticks out to me with rice whiskey in general. Even if it was Japanese rice whiskey, it's always got this nice creamy mouthfeel. And I'm so glad to even find it here on the 96 proof one.
Yes.
Very,
Rice
very
really
viscous.
grain.
Yeah.
For me, oh, go ahead, Kelsey. Oh, I was just gonna say, for me, it retains like that sweetness I get off some of the single barrels. Like it's always been like that big grapey forward, like when we thought Buffalo Trace originally. Like there's still some of that in the background. I do get though it's almost like a peanut brittle kind of like mixed in there too. Like it's not like nutty, like beam nutty, but it has like a type of nutty note with that berry sweetness, which I enjoy a lot. Takes a lot to rub me off the wrong way, but like nuttiness, the berries, the fruitiness, like that's all for me. And like sometimes this actually comes across like it potentially could be like some type of finish because of the sweetness that you pick up on like the nose. But yeah, it's interesting. 100%
One of
rice
the
whiskey.
things, yeah, I was gonna say, one of the things that really sticks out to me about this particular one is the viscosity, the mouthfeel, but also the finish. It has a long finish for a 96 proof whiskey. So it really does, like you said, coat your palate very well, but it also stays with you for a while on the finish, which is really impressive.
And it is that
about-
Smarties confectionery sugar that you were talking about, Kelsey.
Yeah.
I'm getting that same thing now. What were you saying, Mia? Sorry, I cut you
Sorry.
off.
Interrupt you. A funny story about our small batch. And so that's like the start. That's what we learned. We learn everything every day, but that was our first one. And we had 8 barrels. Our first batch, we had the 8 barrels. We dumped it together and we were like, what proof should we use? I said, I just Googled best whiskeys. It popped up. I zoomed it out. It said 96. I go, let's go with 96. Literally, that's what we did because we were like, where do we go? It just tastes well. It tastes so many, tastes so well at so many different things. Where do we start? And so we knew we wanted to be under 100 because we wanted to start with the everyday drinking. But we chose 96 due to a Google search. Just
That's funny.
like 96, and we just dumped the barrels. We're like, that's the batch. That's it. And now that we are getting more and more barrels, we laugh all the time. Like just the other day, we had like 50 samples in front of us. And I'm like, started with dumping 8 in the thing, and now we're trying to move things around like we're some scientific equation or something. I was like, let's just grab 8 random and just do it that way.
Well, that was one of my questions was how many barrels are you using for your batch products at a time?
Now that we're consistent, so we're still going to full production, which we will possibly get in the next 2 years. We haven't decided. The market, it's based about market and sales and reach and where we're going. And honestly, my answers change every day because things just change on a whim. But we are still in our first year. So we are now going into when we tasted it at 3 years. We're about to get that to when we fully really moved production. So we started with 29 barrels. Then we went to, had 87. Then I had 144 this year. I'll have 144 again. And then I will go to 290, then 5 something, can't remember, then to 900 something. And so we'll see whether we'll scale that back, bring it, aging. That's going to change. The legacy has showed us that we need an 8 year. So we cut our 6 year in half and we sent it off like it's going somewhere. Let it sit longer so we can acquire 8. But small batch now consistently is a 15 barrel dump. Our high proof is a 12 barrel dump. And then obviously single barrels are 1 barrel.
Gotcha.
All right.
Let's go on to our next batch product that you guys are putting out, which looks like this, which is 118 proof, which is our barrel proof version of this. One of the things that I still find on this, Jeff, too, is there's still a consistent DNA from the small batch to this. If you get in there, it still has that type of vibe to it. Obviously this to me gets a little bit more complex. You get a little bit more of the vanillas that come out in this, and you get a little bit more oak presence on the palate, I believe, on this as well. So that was one of the things that I really liked, because this one is obviously a little bit more punchy up front, but it still retains that sweetness, even being the punchy. And, we always talk about rye spice. Well, I don't know what it is, but it's not rye spice that comes across mid-palate, but there is a spicy component that comes across in the proof on this particular offering.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
How old is this product?
About 4.5. So we say 4+ because we go on harvest seasons. So all barrels have to go through 4 complete summers and winters. And our harvest season is not a calendar year. So based on that, by the time we pull barrels, they're always over 4, but some can be over 5 as well. So it's just a mixture of whichever ones makes the best batch.
Yeah, and what's interesting too is you notice the finish is just as long on this product as it is on the small batch. You just get a little bit more, like somebody just turned the amplifier up a little bit. You know, you're getting all of those wonderful flavors that you get on that, as well as that type of finish. It's impressive to me how well balanced this is. As I hear about, let's choose 8 barrels, let's just dump it. What's your proof? Google approve. But really, this comes across very well balanced in on both the small batch and the barrel proof batch product as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we definitely get better every single time. We do until we get to a certain. I mean, we're crafts, so we'll never be right on the money. You can definitely tell the difference between batches, but I tell people, like, how we look for single barrels, you should probably look for batches, because there are some I'm just like, oh my God, how did we do this? Like, this is so good. So definitely, just because it's the same product going out, if you look at the back, it shows you the batch, and some batches, they don't, you'll recognize it like, oh yes, that's the small batch. But you definitely should also be like, oh, what batch is this? Kind of like, what single barrel is this? They all kind of, we get better and better each time. They grow.
Okay.
So this one you guys are tasting is 324.
That's the batch.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Will that proof point stay the same?
We
The
do
118?
hard. Yeah, proof stays the same. We have
Okay.
hard numbers. That's the third batch of 2024. Try to remember that. It's real difficult.
Okay. Complicated.
We just also got, which
Needed a coder ring for that one.
is we did get a state pick here in Arkansas between, and that thing has sold out at my local. Everybody loves that freaking pick.
Oh, I love
So,
that. I'm pretty
yeah.
sure they still have more distribution, so they can order more.
Awesome. Well, I'll definitely talk to Nick, because he's already sold out. He's already reordered once, so hopefully we can get some more. But it's really, really a lot of fun. I love the consistency between the small proof 96 and the barrel proof at 118. What do you think about the characteristics of viscosity, Jeff, that you were talking about before?
Well, I actually got a question for you on the spice part of it that we're trying to lock down, because there is a spiciness to it, and it's hard to understand why it's coming from a rice whiskey. I think now, coming off the 96 proof for the first time and going through this, I got a question for you. On the back end, towards the finish, do you get a cayenne pepper that could be like the source of a spiciness? Like, if you try to articulate what that could be.
I can see that a little bit. The thing that I equate it to is more like the oil off of a jalapeno. Because cayenne pepper, when you taste it, usually hits me in the back of my throat more when I eat cayenne pepper. Whereas the oil of a jalapeno, you get it more on the sides and back of your tongue rather than the back of your throat. And so that's where I get it from. That's the way I would try to articulate it best.
We get real specific, Mia.
I have heard people say that the finish is like dark chocolate covered jalapenos.
Okay.
That makes complete sense. Absolutely.
That does make a lot of sense. Oh, man.
I had to think about how to say that, like dark chocolate almonds, but I'm like, because you don't put dark chocolate over almonds.
Well, one of the questions that I've seen come through the chat a lot so far is, when are we going to get it in this state and this state? Let's talk just a few minutes about distribution, what you guys have right now, how many states you're in. We talked a little bit about how you guys are going to scale in upcoming years. How many states are you currently in, and what are those states? Let's start with that.
We're in 3 states: Louisiana, Arkansas, and Texas. So that's the 3 states we're in. In terms of like full distribution, probably Louisiana would be considered the only one. It's a much smaller market, but you can pretty much go everywhere in Louisiana and find us. We just got into Texas this year, but we don't even have enough product to do full distribution in Texas. Right. We're very minimal in Arkansas, I would say, just relative to it, and trying to really boost up that market. in terms of the barrel pick, kind of bringing it back to life. But we're only in 3, and I get that question a lot. We're on Bourbon Outfitters, so I try to get people in terms of shipping. But we just, it's not about not wanting to be there. It's about I don't have the product, and you have to, at the end of the day, this tier system, it's a very complicated industry, and it's very backdated. It doesn't make a lot of sense. The laws are, you would think that the laws would be set up to, the goal is to the supplier to meet the consumer, is to get a safe product. They want the product, the supplier supplies the product, and it's not made that way, long story short. And so when it gets there, at the end of the day, you would think if I wanted to get into a state, I would just say like, ding dong, you know, I'm here, JT Meleck, I'm ready. And they would be like, okay, perfect. Let me hop you on, and whoever wants to order it. That's not the case. They can totally turn me down, which is what I get all the time if I can't make them a certain amount of money. That's an honest, blunt answer. Like, and so I don't have the product. So I can say like, I've tried different things. It took us a year and a half of being declined from Texas to finally have enough that I have to allocate to Texas in order for a distributor to take me on. I have to give a certain amount of barrel picks, a certain amount of small batches, a certain amount of this in order for it to take it. And so that's like basically the short answer, but I don't have it yet. And so people think when you see it all over the place, legit, that I'm sure it seems like we have thousands and thousands of cases in barrel picks. I've done, I want to say, I had the count. I've done 72 barrels, single barrels. There's only been 72 of them across everything. And then small batches. So like I said, 144 barrels this past year. That's everything. That's my small batch. That's my high proof, single barrels, 6 years, everything that we have, 30 gallons. It's all counted in what's ready. And so every batch, so if you take a small batch, that's 15 barrel dump, I'll get roughly 9 pallets. That's 60 cases. So 9 times 60, 540 cases from a batch. And so I have that, and I can do roughly 5 batches a year of what I have right now. So that's not even 3,000 cases, or just over 3,000 cases. So all around, I have less than 5,000 total cases of batches, and probably under 1,000 cases per year of single barrels. So that cannot supply the country. And so slowly but surely, so next year we do not grow. So the goal would be to grow Texas more and allocate more there to be able to expand. So then to see the success there, that will then roll over to some other states.
Okay.
And again, that answer changes all the time, because I have some like kind of not loopholes, but different things I'm kind of working on to get in states at a small flux, to try to negotiate terms in terms of that. But I can't promise anything or say where it's going. But that's my long short version of it. I just don't have the product.
Yeah.
When we
I will say this: don't do anything different than what you're doing.
Yeah, we don't want to rush.
Because exactly. I think you guys are at a great price point. I think you guys are putting out quality product, and I would hate to see any of those change just for the sheer fact of trying to get it to more people. I know you want to, but here's the thing: I think that you're going to have influencers, you're going to have YouTube people do more word of mouth spreading about this brand than you ever think that was possible. The more that it gets in people's hands as far as just tasting it, getting exposure to it. So I hope that, everybody that out there that does not have distribution, hopefully I can be a brand ambassador for you guys as we travel around and let people taste it, if nothing else, that they can seek it out in whatever market that they can get their hands on it.
Yes. The sharing, like how you were sending and sharing, that's like the main thing. If you were to hit what is my number one like marketing goal, because at the end of the day, we're a marketing company. We're a distillery, we make it, but we have to market it in order for people. There's just millions and thousands of different types. And my father laughs at me all the time, but I'm like, it's a big goal. But my goal is for JT Meleck to be the first national brand to make it by the consumer, not by paying people to force them to do things. And that's very difficult. And I have a lot of people that kind of get frustrated with me sometimes of like, I can't tell you how many messages I get of like, they want free stuff, or they want me to pay for their things, or they want this. I want real people, I want real things. Also, I mean, we're farming this and have to age this stuff. I don't have this industry is very, I don't know a word for it, but I don't know who started it. But back in the day, somebody felt like they had to, act all these things. And now we're in a world where the concept of a supplier is rolling in money, just like rolling in it. We swipe here, we swipe for this, we swipe. And everyone's like, oh my God, you must be living the high life. I'm like, I'm sweating and I'm crying at night. And I'm just really excited when it's very stressful, but it's happy too, And so many people will do these profiles, and that's kind of like where this concept of like an influencer market, but we've gone so much in terms of like what an influencer is. The concept of the influencer is to share true stories about you believe in something and you want your friends and people following to believe in that because you believe in it. And we've scoped away from, if I'm going to be blunt, I'm going to be paid to tell you, and I'm going to tell these consumers they're going to buy because of this, and then next week I'll have something different. And it's not that I'm disagreeing with it. People have opportunities, they find it, they make their living. That's not it. But I want JT Meleck, I want them to be like, I drank this because Kelsey believed in it. He sent this over, and this is the coolest shit I've ever drank. And now I'm going to send it to them, and they're going to go to a retailer, and now the retailer is going to be adamant on the distributor. And finally, the distributor is going to call me back, be like, hey, I know I've sent you to voicemail like 6 times, but they're like blowing up JT Meleck over here. Every single retailer, consumers are walking in. I want your brand. I don't care what you have to give me. I don't care if it's 100 cases. I'll take 100 cases. And like, that's what I want. And I'm slowly having some distributors starting. We don't have the product yet, but y'all, I want to be the first brand that does it because the consumers want it and they believe in it, and the retailers. So it makes the tier shift in a direction that it's meant to be. Like, consumers want it, they get it. Not because it's moved here and things are manipulating. You have to drive over here and you flip the corn, and that's what I'm working. Everything we do is organic. I don't fake anything. My videos are real. If I'm not making a video, it's because I just can't do it that day. I'm just not in the right mindset, or just like need a break or whatnot. It's like, we're very authentic over here. It's very real. And I want people to feel the work that my family does. I mean, my uncle's in the crop duster. He is farming the actual rice. He's planting it. My cousins are bottling it up. We're marketing here. My father's the entrepreneur creating the entire business scope of it. Like, it's just, my mom is all the designs you see. So she's made all the labels, every POS thing that you see, she has created. And I want people to feel part of that story. And that comes with just like really feeling the brand, not just, just another piece. And so It's a big goal, but once I set my sights on something, I don't back down.
I will say though, it's been happening so far. Like, that's how we got into it, right? Kelsey loved it, talked it up, threw it in blinds, gave it to us, and it's a trickle down effect, right? Like, we end up enjoying it, then it goes down to some other friends. Just word of mouth explodes, right? Like,
it eventually results into Jason doing a single barrel.
Yes.
As we talk about it more and more, like, I'm flipping it the wrong way.
And when I get
you got Lance here too.
I'm excited. I love the message when you invited me on the podcast is one of my favorite things. I met it through this. I saw you on here. I shared it with friends. And I'm like, hell yeah. Like, let's chat. I will always want to talk about people that are just as excited as me about our brand.
Yeah.
Oh, where was that comment, Kelsey? You just highlighted it. Where's Lance at?
Oh,
okay. Yeah. Yes, Lance. Yes. Yes.
We will get you. We will get you her contact information. So that
okay, so it's a perfect lead on that I need to make a video about. But so I made a submission form. So if you go to our Instagram or just type in Linktree, or if you have anything with our QR code, which is probably on the Mike's pick because I put it on the Bourbon Outfitters pick. We have a QR code that has like all of our profiles, our website, our socials. But there's now a submit your interest in a barrel pick, and it has all of the information because we're always on a waiting list. And I always hear about things really late. And honestly, I'm so tired of telling people like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm on a waiting list, because they always think I'm blowing them off. And I'm really not. Like, true, I really am. But it also depends on where you are, the different states, the allocation of what I have. Like, honestly, the waiting list in Louisiana is way longer than it would be in somewhere else because that's my home state, And so now I have a submission. It's not a guarantee for a pick, but it gets me your information so I can put you on the list and plan it out and have all the information. Because when people throw it at me, I will try to write it down, but most of the time, unless it's in. So I have that. If you go to Linktree, the Linktree for JT Meleck, it has that, and it also has event requests. So I'll get the same thing. People were like, "Oh, I just had a bourbon group. I wish you could have came." And I'm like, "Oh, dang it!" Or I have one next week, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm already booked." You know, like I would love to. And so you can go and submit all that stuff. It comes right to my email and goes right into a spreadsheet. I've already linked the whole thing. It's like
Nice.
yes.
So Mia, did I hear you right earlier that there's only been 72 single barrels?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
38 this year.
Kelsey, I didn't know we were this spoiled between you, Jason's pick, the Justin's picks. I think we've tried 10% of all of their single barrels, and that math kind of freaks me out a little bit.
Isn't it crazy?
Yeah. It's
Let's make it 11%.
Yeah, right. Let's go on to the single barrel. This is the one that she was talking about, the Mike's pick from Justin's House of Bourbon.
Okay.
This one's a really different profile than a lot of the single barrels that I've tasted. So this is one that I wanted you guys to taste.
I get less like of that fruity note up front on this Mike's pick than I do on the 18, the 118.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's coming across somewhere like a honey or a watered down butterscotch, but I'm getting more of a syrupy kind of a vibe to it.
Yeah, I really liked this one because it was a real different like direction than some of the other single barrels that I have and have been blessed to taste. It's just a real different. They can show you the diversity of their barrels is one of the things that I wanted you guys to taste. The finish is real long like it normally is, but it's not. This is more well-rounded and a little less like punchy up front, as a single barrel.
Man, I'm sticking to that honey note that I called on the nose. I'm kind of sticking to that on the palate.
So one of the things, Mia, that I will do, you have my commitment from me, is bring a bottle of the 118 proof to the bottle share that we're about to go to, where there will be 180 bourbon people. So I will take that and I will put that in the hands of 180 different people to drink and try to get it out.
Because those are really small pours.
Yeah. Really
an eighth of an ounce each.
Everybody gets a thimble of the whiskey.
Exactly.
All at the same time.
That's what you're saying. Like that's one of the things that for those people who have not lived in Louisiana and don't know about Louisianians, two things. One, they'll eat anything. Number two is that they are hardworking people, genuine people that love what they do and are some of the most like salt of the earth type of people that you will ever meet. They would give you the shirt off their back. They're very giving. They really enjoy what they do. They work hard, but they party hard. That's one of the fun things about that culture that I really, really loved and absorbed when I lived there were those things. And so I think that you guys have done a great job of not only creating a great whiskey, but creating the passion and culture that you guys have of your state with your brand. So kudos to you.
Thank you. We're also super guard dogs. We protect the people around us. And I tell everyone, like, once I like talk to you and know you, I got your back. What'd you say? I'm like, I got you. What?
I also want to spend a little time on this legacy blend because I feel like this is one that you guys are going to be blown away by because I was. Yeah. Tell us a little bit, because I know this one was a little bit different. If I remember right, we were doing smaller barrels, correct?
Yes. Yep. So this one has a fun story. Everything has a fun story. So this is the legacy. So our original barrels, we had 15 barrels that we filled first ever in 2017. So you can see the date, the specific date. We filled this one 11/9/17. Half of them were filled in July 17th of 2017. and the other 7 were filled in November of this thing. So in 2017, we've got 15 barrels. We have a distillate. We're feeling great. We filled this up. We about to feed the nation with these 15 barrels, 30 gallons. And we are quickly humbled and realize what the ounce portions of what we've got here is not going to feed us. And one of our mentors with a thick old Kentucky accent was like, basically, what the F are y'all doing? And we're like, what do you mean? We're making whiskey. Can't you see it? Like, they're right here. And he's like, if you're going to make real whiskey, like the big boys, you got to fill up the big boy barrels. And I looked at my dad and I was like, I thought these were the big ones. Like, I'm like looking at him, like, we're like looking over. He's looking at me and he's like, I don't know, just, okay, yeah, we'll get the big ones. What? So we had to go and realize we thought we ordered the big ones and we didn't. So we've got these and we're like, okay. So we had to wait 6 or 7 months for our 53s to come in, which is why there was a 6-month gap between when we had our special release in 2021, which is the Founders Edition. That was the 4-year version of this. And when we launched our 53-gallon small batch is what you guys tried the first time. So always a funny story. So like, oh, we're getting ready to go. And then, yeah, funny. So we launched that in 2022. So what we have here this year in October, we're actually launching the first batch of our 6-year. So we have 1 batch. Yeah. But earlier in this year, we were trying to figure out, we kept going back and forth on basically when our whiskey hits, when it starts to really decline. Like you've hit your peak and it can't go more than that. Everything we do every single day is us developing basically a foundation. There's no information about 100% American rice. Every single day we learn new things, we adapt to new things, and we have no idea. Like we have a concept of what we want the future to look like, but it's ever changing. And so we're going back and forth. We had 35 barrels that were going to be 6-year post summer. And so we can have 2 batches. We're going here and we're saying, okay, do we want 2 batches that we launch in quarter 4 for Christmas? Or do we want 1 batch for Christmas and 1 for the new year? Or do we want to hold 1 for middle of the year? Do we want to spread it out? Or do we just hold 1 all together? And I'm like, so we were going like this. Post summer, we tasted the 6-year. And don't mistake me by me. I'm not saying it's bad. So I don't want to say this because it hasn't come out. But I had the same concept as I did when we tried the Founders. And if you ever had the Founders and you compare it to this, it's not comparable. And I remember when we tasted the Founders, I remember thinking, I was like, it either won't make it or it's not, like it's sitting pretty. When you think something's there and you just need to let it cook in the oven 5 more minutes and it's impatient and just let it. And I went back to my notes. And so we couldn't decide. So we pulled the 6-year and I'm like, I don't know if I've just gotten all these, barrels in my head, but this is not what I thought. My father's like, it's beautiful. It's the best thing. And I'm like, it is, but I guess maybe like I couldn't decide. I had to get him to blind me a bunch of times because I was like, I think I'm making it psychological. Like the 4-year single barrel, I just had in my head what a 6-year single barrel would be. And it's very good, but I don't know. I was like, I'm messing it up. So finally I get really frustrated and I'm like, he's like, all right, you're making me nervous. I'm making myself nervous. I don't know. So we call another mentor and he was like, all right, well, how about this? He goes, you got them 30-gallon barrels, huh? And I was like, yeah, they're somewhere in the warehouse. I was like, we got about 7 of them. He was like, oh, there you go. What are they, like 7 years? And I'm like, roughly, probably just under. He goes, there's your 8 or 9 53. Go try it. If it's bad, release the 6-year. If it's great, then you need to let it cook. And I was like, oh, perfect. So we pull the samples and our distiller brings us these samples. I taste it and I'm like, what the? I'm like, no. Yeah. I literally called him and I was like, Brett, I think you brought me the wrong samples. I meant the 30 gallons, the one in the corner. Remember the first ones that we filled up? He's like, yeah, like looking at me like I'm dumb, which I guess I was like, so this is the 30-gallon? He's like, yes. I'm like, holy shit. I'm like running to my dad. I'm like, you gotta try this. Oh my God. You're like freaking out. He's looking at me. I'm looking at him. I'm like, I don't know what we're doing, but we're releasing this. We're definitely releasing this. Like this came out of nowhere. It was not planned. I was just like, I don't know what we're doing, but people gotta try this. And so we decided that we cut half now we have 13 barrels that we put to age, and we'll have one 6-year batch this year. There'll be 300 cases in Louisiana and 60 cases on Bourbon Outfitters. And then the other is aging to 8 years. So we'll see what it looks like at 8 years and whether we can continue on to more than that. So that's a pleasant surprise. I honestly thought these were just going to sit in the warehouse and just kind of like, we forgot because we can only do so many things. And it just came as a pleasant surprise. So we were debating between the 6 and the 8 year test of this. And it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever had in my entire life. And I know that's probably a biased opinion from other people being JT
I'll
Meleck.
tell you, you're not being biased because I'm nosing this damn thing. Oh my God.
This is
When I cracked this thing open, I was like, what the F? And then I got some other ones. I won't say which brands, but I got out some other ones that I thought were gonna, kind of put it to shame. And I wound up liking this better than that. So it's just that good.
yes.
I just don't know how else to say it.
I haven't even tasted yet. I'm fine with the nose.
I took one sip, and if somebody wants to go back and clip what I said, like under my breath, like, it would be pretty funny because it's pretty similar to what Millie was saying. But
Kelsey,
I didn't.
do you have enough
it.
of this for? Do you have enough of this for our blind tournament at the end?
For real. It's good.
Man,
Hey, if
Look at
I
the quality,
don't, Ryan has one as well, so we might be able to have Ryan help us.
It is so good. Me and my husband went 2 days. Like, it was gone. We're just like sharing it with friends, drinking. It's so good. Oh my God, it's so good.
You can really tell, obviously, the smaller barrels had a really big influence on the oak, but also the color, as well as the profile. I mean, it's a different profile even than the barrel proof version, right?
Yeah, it drinks so easy, but all the flavor is just like there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was this proof down to 110?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It was. Okay.
Yeah,
Do you know what was it? Out of curiosity, before being proofed down, do you know?
This 124.7.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So this is an error right here. You can show how we do everything by hand. I accidentally left that on there. So we were originally going to make single barrels. So we were going to come. So when we tasted it, I was like, let's do it. But again, we always put everything together, see what it tastes like, move it away from there. And he picked 110 because we were already playing around with 110 for our 6 year. And so he was like, let's try the 110 that we were planning for the 6 year. And so it was beautiful, but it's even better at 110. I mean, obviously we chose to go there, but I couldn't believe, because I was like, I don't know, this is amazing. But he was like, let me try something. And he was right. It's even better at 110.
I think it would be good at that proof still, the higher proof, but I really think you miss out on some of the nuances of the whiskey just because of your trying to delve through the proof of it, right?
Yeah.
So,
and these were always aged in their original barrels. This wasn't finished anyway?
Nope.
Wow.
Same barrel. We haven't finished anything.
Dude, like.
Yeah.
I guess
I tried to tell him, I was like, you guys aren't going to believe me, and I'll throw this out there now because maybe I'll get in trouble, maybe I won't. But I put this up me against 13th Colony's Double Oak Batch 2 because that's what it reminded me of.
I love 13th Colony.
And I was like, I was like, man, this is so similar.
I'll do that
to that as far as the profile goes. But I actually wound up liking this profile better because of the sweetness that it has, but it still has that rich, dense quality to it as well.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, that's it, Kelsey. You just put that connection in my head. Like, that's why I asked if it was finished or not, because I was getting these notes like that. Yes, that's exactly it.
So good.
You know what's funny is that I think my brain overthinks. When we started this, I'll tell you, I was very overwhelmed to try to streamline flavors, thoughts, adaptations of this, because I'll tell you my first thing of like, okay, we started having whiskey. I'm like, I'm just going to watch as many whiskey reviews as I can and just try to pick up things.
Yeah.
And I remember I grabbed this guy, I don't remember who it was, but he was doing a blind. He told you ahead of time. You can go and watch it. So I grabbed some samples, acquired them all, and I followed him with it. And I get to my second one. He was like, oh my gosh, it's bananas and cream. And I literally went, oh, I hate bananas. I hate bananas. And I was like, oh my God. But I know I like the whiskey. I've had it before, but I'm trying to follow him along. And instantly still, I can't look at the bottle without thinking about bananas. And I hate them. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is so crazy because it's such a subjective, your environment, your nose, what's around you, what you had that day, your feelings, your emotions. And so my experience in college athletics, it's very similar to like a DISC assessment. So like a personality trait. So when it comes to flavors, my brain overthinks it because I'm like, oh my God, what if we profiled as bananas and half the country doesn't like bananas? Then all of a sudden they won't try it. We already have rice. My brain's just going like this. And so I know I'm liking it, but I actually see colors and like emotions. So the first thing I have a colored chart with the barrels. So I do first word relation, and words have meanings, I guess you can say. And so I put our barrels through DISC assessments. So they're all in a color coordinated chart. So when I get a lot of retailers and barrel groups that will come, and bourbon groups that will come, and they're like, oh my gosh, you're getting me. These 4 are so different. And I'm like, because they're from different of the colored charts. So I'll never give you barrels that are all purples, lilacs, violets. They're too similar to each other. I'll give you 4 different ones. I'll give you a lilac, a rosemary, this. Like it's a whole like kind of rainbow. Because the first thing, I don't think into it. It's just lilac, and I'm like, yep, there. And I have a word that relates, and they're all in a chart. And so like I love to hear what people say, because I'm like, yeah, I've heard of dark chocolate jalapeno. I mean, I wouldn't be able to articulate that, but now that you've told me, yeah, I do see that, but I see colors. But my color was forest green on that one. So our small batch has a forest green finish, which if you think about it, jalapeno green, and it's like very similar. It's very interesting to see how you can adapt. And so I speak in colors and word choices versus like fruits and vegetables and things like that. But it's at the end of the day, it kind of comes to the same thing.
You're killing me because now I just want to taste the rainbow.
For real.
I want to go all the way through it.
Well, and you're also speaking his language because he loves charts and he loves anything that has to do with analytics.
It's really great, y'all. Like, actually, which is funny, I have like severe anxiety, and coordinating all of my whiskeys will help me sometimes with a nightcap. I'll be in a color and I'll get a barrel that complements the color. And legit, like, because there are times where my husband will grab me something that I really like, but if I am just in one of those moods, I'm like, I don't like this. But I know it's just because the mood that I'm in won't allow me to accept these flavors. Y'all, I can go all over. Like, I think the psychology of the subjectiveness of this is so interesting. Like, it's so interesting. Like,
oh man,
there's Troy. Cheers,
Pop 'em.
What's up?
So
I love everything about this freaking legacy. Oh my god.
Oh yeah.
I maybe would. And here's the thing: like going through these and doing what some of the single barrels would taste like, I could see the potential that was there, but I never would have thought it would have gone the extra.
All the way to this.
Yeah. I just it just goes to prove, environment, like you were talking about environment, but also, I'm sure that those colors come from particular places in your rick house or in different areas, that are consistently coming up with this color profile for you.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show how just one part of one state and where you are, and you could take the same thing and do the exact same things in another part of the state and it would be completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
you can do it in the same state and it's completely different with all these single barrels,
Oh yeah.
We've seen that. Side by side.
Jeff, anything other questions that you have for her? I know we're running over time a little bit.
Running over time a little bit here, but I got one last question for you. And what is next? what's coming around the corner, any releases you want to talk about, I will leave that completely open-ended for you, wherever you want to take that question.
Yes. So we have a 6-year coming in about a month. What is it? Yep. It's halfway through the year. So it should be around October 15th. We have a 6-year, which is a gold label. Not gold like Saints gold, like our I'm trying to think of something it's beautiful. It actually, arguably, it could be prettier than the single barrel, the dark blue.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like there's no other color like it. It's absolutely beautiful, and that's coming out. We have one batch. So the story I told about aging, we cut that. We had 35 barrels. We sent 13 to age for 8 years. We have 12 barrels. It's one batch. It's at 110 proof. It's a new item. We will have it again, but we won't have it until next year. Next year, we'll have 2 batches. The following year, we'll have 1.5. So just 2 smaller batches because we didn't have barrels. That's a whole nother story. So that's a new item that you'll see every Christmas until we have enough that we have a 6-year. And so that's our new item. And then in 2026, we'll have an 8-year, hopefully, fingers crossed. So that's what we got.
Nice. I do got a quick question.
Perfect.
On the legacy side of things. So I know you're going to be potentially getting it out, making it older, 8 years. Is that in a 30-year, or did you say 53? You may have answered it too. Is it 53?
Yep. Everything we have is 53. So those were the first O barrels that we accidentally filled up. So if we ever do that again, I actually called about it. I would have to wait 18 months to get more 30 gallons. So we're looking at 9 years.
9 years. So, yeah.
Again. Yep. So we'll see. Probably not. That's probably the only thing we'll ever see it like that. And honestly, that's a long time. You're talking about 16 years. It probably wouldn't even taste the same. There's no way we can repeat that. Just in terms of that's a whole different crop. I mean, just right
maybe
now,
it could be better.
A hurricane, it changes everything. I mean, flavor components. I know we're over, but we're talking about the rice.
No,
you're good.
How the grain and the systems and the weather changes, that's probably another component of why our whiskey is so adaptive and different. The grain is constantly changing and adapting to its environment.
Yeah, Walker, we had that one. Jeff, we'll get that to Darrell and I. We'll taste through that. But, Mia, thank you so much for coming on tonight. It's been a blast to hang out and get to know you a little bit. And maybe when I can come down to my office in Lafayette, I can swing by and say hello to you guys. So, Jeff, anything else that we need to say before we wrap it up?
You know, the only other thing, and Rick had this earlier in the chat, I wanted to save this to the end rather than the beginning, but did want to take just a moment to kind of recognize the day that we're on, it being 9/11, and just recognizing, 23 years ago in remembrance of everything that happened that day and everything thereafter. So did want to acknowledge that today at the end of the show. And Mia, also, thank you so much for coming on here, talking through, definitely giving us your passion and everything about this conversation. I kind of want to talk to you for another hour about this, but we will call it at an hour for now. And everybody, once again, thank you so much for the support over the last week. I'll thank the 44 people left in chat for that as well.
I love that. Thank y'all so much. And thank you for everyone who is watching and supports our brand. All just keep sharing Meleck with everybody, tell our story. And I truly appreciate it. This is my favorite part about it all. Just meeting new people and sharing stories.
That's our favorite part too.
Well, if you want to stick around, we'll talk to you, but just stay on after.
Perfect.
Yeah, I play a video and a song, so we'll see you on the flip side of that.
Okay.
And everybody left in chat. We got 42 people still in here. Go over to Jason's stream, tell him we sent you, and we'll catch you on the next Whiskey Wednesday.
Cheers, everybody. Thanks.
Oh,